All right, so Ethereum price predictions, right? It seems like everyone wants to know what the future holds, especially when we're talking about something as potentially revolutionary as cryptocurrency.
Absolutely, yeah.
And today, we're diving deep into some expert opinions and analysis to see where they think Ethereum's price might be headed in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, we can't give you a crystal ball, but looking at these predictions and really understanding the reasoning behind them, that can be a pretty insightful exercise.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm already intrigued. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's just ground ourselves in the present.
Sure.
So Ethereum's the second largest cryptocurrency right now. That's pretty well known.
Right.
But what's the current landscape looking like? What's going on with Ethereum these days?
So Ethereum's transition to version 2.0, that was a big deal. Moving to that proof of stake model really addressed a lot of concerns about energy consumption, and it helped with scalability too.
Oh, for sure.
But it's not all smooth sailing.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not all roses, right? What are some of the challenges that Ethereum's facing?
Yeah, I mean, regulatory scrutiny is ramping up. Transaction fees can still get pretty high, especially when the network's busy. And there's a lot of competition out there. You've got other blockchains like Solana, Cardano, and Avalanche all vying for that top spot.
Yeah, it's a crowded space for sure. But, sometimes these challenges can actually be beneficial in the long run, right? Do you think that's the case with Ethereum?
Yeah, I think you could say that challenges often drive innovation. Overcoming these hurdles, it could make Ethereum even stronger in the long term. Imagine, like a blacksmith forging a sword. The intense heat, the hammering, it's all essential to make that weapon really strong and durable.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Okay, so we've talked about where Ethereum is now, but let's talk about the future, the factors that could shape its value down the line. Our source material points to some pretty compelling ones. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got things like institutional adoption, how much are the big players getting involved?
Right.
Then there's the whole regulatory landscape, how governments are approaching crypto, and that's constantly evolving. And of course, the Ethereum 2.0 upgrades, those are ongoing. And then you can never underestimate the power of market sentiment, right?
It's true, yeah. Let's unpack those a little bit.
Sure.
Let's start with institutional adoption. Are institutions like banks and investment firms, are they really going all in on Ethereum? Or are they just kind of testing the waters?
Well, we're definitely seeing significant interest, especially when it comes to decentralized finance, what we call DeFi.
Yeah.
Applications built on Ethereum, things like decentralized exchanges. And these lending protocols, they're really appealing to institutions. They offer the potential for, greater efficiency, more transparency, because you're cutting out those traditional middlemen. But at the same time, institutions are still trying to balance that with, regulatory compliance and the inherent risks of such a new and evolving space.
So it's like they're trying to bridge that gap between the traditional world of finance and this new decentralized frontier.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Speaking of navigating tricky territory, let's talk about regulation. How do you think this increasing government scrutiny, how is that going to impact Ethereum?
Well, the regulatory landscape, it's definitely a critical factor. When there aren't clear guidelines, it creates a lot of uncertainty for investors. But on the other hand, well-defined regulations, they could actually boost confidence and lead to wider acceptance of cryptocurrencies like Ethereum.
It's like setting the ground rules, right?
Yeah.
Making sure everyone's playing on a level playing field. But it's tough. With so many different countries, different approaches, it's hard to predict what's coming next.
Exactly. Take, for example, the EU's MiCA regulation.
Yeah.
That's aiming to bring clarity. But some of the provisions in there, they could actually stifle DeFi innovation on Ethereum. And then you've got the SEC in the US taking a more assertive approach, potentially classifying a lot of these tokens as securities. So yeah, all this regulatory uncertainty, it makes institutions hesitant. And that can definitely have an impact on Ethereum's price.
Right, because it adds that layer of risk. Okay, let's get a little bit technical.
Okay.
What about those Ethereum 2.0 upgrades? They sound pretty game-changing.
Yeah, they are. Ethereum 2.0 is designed to address some of the platform's limitations, particularly when it comes to scalability. And one of the most anticipated upgrades is sharding.
Sharding. Okay,
Yeah.
break that down for me. How does it work? And why is it such a big deal?
Okay, so sharding is basically a way to split the Ethereum network into these smaller interconnected pieces. It's kind of like, imagine a highway suddenly expanding from, let's say, 4 lanes to 16. You can handle a lot more traffic. And that's what sharding does for Ethereum. It lets it process way more transactions at the same time. And that increased throughput that can dramatically reduce transaction times and fees, making Ethereum more practical for everyday use.
So sharding's like a game changer for speed and efficiency.
Yeah,
But how does that affect Ethereum's ability to compete with these other faster blockchains that are already out there?
that's a great question. Sharding could definitely help Ethereum close that gap, but it's a really complex process to implement. It takes time. And in the meantime, you've got competitors like Solana and Polygon, and they're already attracting developers and users because of those faster transaction speeds and lower fees. So it's a constant race to innovate and stay ahead.
That's a good point. Okay, last but not least, market sentiment. We all know that emotions can play a big role in driving those cryptocurrency prices up and down. How do you see that playing out with Ethereum in particular?
Yeah, market sentiment is a powerful force, maybe even more so in the crypto world. You see these incredibly optimistic narratives like the idea of Ethereum flipping Bitcoin, surpassing it in market value. That can really ignite those massive price surges. But then on the flip side, you have these bearish outlooks, often linked to broader economic downturns, and those can trigger significant dips. So it's like a roller coaster.
It's a roller coaster of emotions, yeah, with fear and greed kind of battling it out. But what's really driving those swings? Is it based on real world adoption, actual development progress, or is it just a lot of hype and speculation?
I think it's a mix of both, honestly. You have investors who are in it for the long haul. They truly believe in the potential of Ethereum and the technology behind it. And they're basing their decisions on those fundamentals. But then there's definitely a portion that's driven by speculation, chasing those quick profits, reacting to, whatever the latest headline is, regardless of the underlying value.
It's a recipe for volatility.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork here. We've talked about the current state of Ethereum and all these factors that could impact its price in the future. Are you ready to get to those price predictions?
I am. Let's see what the experts are saying.
Okay, so let's get to those predictions. What are the experts saying about Ethereum's price in 2025?
All right, well, on the more conservative side, you have analysts predicting Ethereum could hit somewhere between, say, $5,000 to $7,000 by 2025.
So those predictions, those are pointing to kind of a steady upward trend. What's the thinking behind those more cautious forecasts?
I mean, those forecasts, they're usually based on a few key assumptions. Steady adoption, gradual improvements in the technology, a clearer regulatory landscape, that sort of thing. So it's still growth, just not maybe at the super explosive rate that some people are hoping for.
Right, it's more of a slow and steady wins the race approach.
Exactly.
But then you have the bullish predictions, right, where things get a little more exciting. What are we talking about there?
Now we're talking, yeah. Some experts see Ethereum breaking $10,000 by 2025.
Wow, that's a big jump. What's driving that kind of optimistic outlook?
Well, those predictions, they're usually fueled by, widespread adoption of these decentralized applications or dApps, significant institutional investment coming in, and maybe a reduced supply of Ethereum because of staking,
Yeah.
which could, create scarcity and drive up that price.
So it's like Ethereum becomes the platform for this decentralized future that everyone's talking about and everyone wants in.
Yeah, exactly.
But wait, there's more.
There's always more.
Our source material goes even further down the line. What are the long-term predictions looking like for Ethereum?
Buckle up. Some experts believe Ethereum could reach $20,000 or more by 2030.
Now that's a number that really makes you think. What would have to happen for Ethereum to reach those kinds of heights?
I mean, to get to that kind of valuation, Ethereum would likely have to become like the backbone of a truly decentralized global economy, powering everything from financial transactions to supply chains, digital identity, you name it. It's a vision where Ethereum becomes as essential as the internet is today.
That's mind-blowing to think about. But, we got to bring in a little dose of reality here.
Sure.
No investment is without risks, and Ethereum is no exception. What are some of those potential challenges that could, maybe slow down Ethereum's growth or even derail those optimistic price predictions?
Well, I mean, competition, right? We talked about that earlier. You've got Solana, Polygon, and countless other blockchain projects.
Yeah.
They're all fighting for that top spot, each with their own strengths.
It's a crowded space, and
Yeah.
it's constantly changing. So where do you think Ethereum might be most vulnerable to these competitors?
I'd say transaction speeds and fees. Those are key battlegrounds.
Yeah.
Ethereum is working on solutions like sharding, but some of these newer blockchains, they're already super fast and
Yeah.
they have significantly lower fees.
So it's a race against time for Ethereum to scale effectively, but also without compromising, security and decentralization.
Right, exactly. It's a balancing act.
Okay, so competition, that's a big one. What other risks should we be thinking about?
Well, there's that regulatory uncertainty, right? We talked about MiCA and the SEC stance, but those regulations, they're always evolving. And a sudden policy change could really throw a wrench in things for Ethereum.
It's like navigating a constantly shifting landscape, yeah.
Exactly. And even within the Ethereum ecosystem itself, there are challenges. Some of these proposed solutions, like sharding, they're incredibly complex. Implementing them without, creating vulnerabilities or compromising decentralization, it's a huge undertaking.
It's a lot of pressure on the developers to get it right.
For sure. And then there's always the potential for, disagreements within the community or, issues with governance that could slow things down.
Hmm.
Or even lead to forks in the blockchain, which could fragment the ecosystem.
So it's not just about the technology, it's about the people involved as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, last but not least, we have to talk about the volatility of the cryptocurrency market in general. How big of a factor is that when we're trying to predict Ethereum's price?
I mean, volatility, it's part of the game in the crypto world.
Hmm.
It creates those opportunities for massive gains, but it also exposes investors to big risks. Market sentiment, news cycles, the global economy, all of those things can trigger these sudden price swings. And Ethereum, it's not immune to that.
It's like riding a roller coaster with a blindfold on. You never know which way it's going to go next.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And that's why it's so important to, understand that investing in Ethereum or any cryptocurrency, it's risky. Do your research, understand the technology, assess the risks, the rewards, and, a classic piece of advice, never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Good advice. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the exciting potential to the potential risks and challenges. As we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways you want to leave our listeners with?
I think if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's that Ethereum's future, well, it's full of potential, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But also a lot of uncertainty, It's like we're standing at the edge of this huge uncharted territory
Right, yeah.
with all these amazing opportunities, but also challenges. We don't know what's out there.
It reminds me of like the early days of the internet when
Right.
people were so skeptical about like buying things online or
Right.
connecting with strangers on social media. And look where we are now.
Exactly. That's a great
And-
comparison.
Yeah.
We often underestimate how transformative technology can be.
Yeah.
Just like the internet revolutionized the way we communicate, the way we do business,
Right.
blockchain technology, with Ethereum, leading the way, it has the potential to completely change how we deal with money,
Right.
assets, even information itself.
And it's not just about finance either.
No, not at all.
We're seeing blockchain popping up in so many different areas like supply chains, healthcare,
Yeah.
art, music, even voting systems. It's pretty crazy.
It is. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
And what's so fascinating to me is, this decentralized approach.
Yeah.
It challenges these traditional power structures, right?
Yeah.
Instead of relying on, intermediaries like banks or governments.
Yeah.
Blockchain empowers people to interact directly with each other.
Right.
It creates this more transparent and potentially, more equitable system.
So it's like a shift from like a centralized top-down
Exactly.
or distributed.
Yeah, bottom-up approach.
Yeah. What do you think, what implications could this have on society as a whole?
I mean, the potential implications are huge, right?
Yeah.
Imagine a world where financial systems are more accessible, less discriminatory,
Yeah.
where supply chains are totally transparent and super efficient,
Right.
where you have control over your own data, your digital identity.
Right.
Those are just a few examples of how blockchain could reshape everything.
Yeah. It's exciting, but it's also kind of like a little overwhelming to think about
It is.
the potential for such a massive change.
Yeah. And it's important to remember, this technology, it's still early days.
Right. For sure.
There are going to be bumps in the road,
Yeah.
We've talked about the technical challenges, the regulatory uncertainty, the competition.
Right.
It's not going to be easy.
And we also have to, talk about responsible development.
Absolutely.
Making sure that, we're using this technology ethically
Right.
and for the benefit of everyone.
Couldn't agree more, The future of Ethereum and blockchain in general,
Yeah.
it really depends on the choices we make today.
That's a good point.
It's a collective effort,
Right.
Developers, investors, policymakers, and everyday users, we all have a role to play.
So to our listeners out there, stay curious, stay engaged,
Yeah,
keep exploring this world of decentralized technology.
absolutely.
Who knows, maybe you'll be the one to create that next groundbreaking application
Right.
or help solve some of these challenges that we've been talking about.
The future is being built right now, and we all have a hand in it.
That's a great way to put it, and a great place to wrap things up.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Ethereum
thanks for having me.
and its potential future. Until next time, keep your minds open and stay curious.